Welcome back to the show. If you're watching, you can see that we've changed into our Halloween costumes.
Yeah, this is the surprise that you were all waiting for. Wren and I were like thinking of what we should be for Halloween together. We were like famous journalists or like famous best friend duos throughout history. Like, what should we be? And we were like, oh my God, the perfect answer has been in front of us the whole time. Newsgirls.
We are newsgirls. Yeah. If you listened to the first episode, you heard our little history lesson about newsgirls, which were some of the first young women and girls who worked in the journalism industry starting in the late 1800s. And since we really feel like we are the 21st century version of them, it only was right that we dress up like them.
Yes, we'll throw up some pictures for the people that are watching to see where our style inspiration came from. But for the listeners, we'll tell you what we're wearing. So I am wearing a black blouse with a tie and like a hat that's kind of like a newspaper boy hat, train conductor hat.
And I'm wearing like a tweed jacket with like a classic white collared button down and a white bow in my hair because when they weren't wearing hats, they were wearing bows.
So we did a great job.
Just thought we'd make it like fun,
festive
on this Halloween, especially as we're all very stressed because, Mabel, the election is less than a week away.
I know. Oh my God, I can't believe it's so close. But even though election day is coming up, we might not know who the president is for quite some time.
Exactly. So today we thought we'd get you ready for next week with the Newsgirls Election Survival Guide. Experts have said it might take days or even weeks until we know who the next president is, which I'm sure gives a lot of us scary 2020 flashbacks.
Oh, definitely. But I mean, in 2020, we were in the heart of the pandemic. So all these public health measures basically required us to mail in our ballots. And it seems like things are kind of trending in that direction. More and more people are mailing in their ballots. So we can expect that this year as well. To put it in context, 23.5% of voters mailed in their ballots in 2016, as opposed to 46% in 2020.
Wow, so that's like double. In case you didn't know, mail-in ballots take longer to process because you have to open the envelope, you have to verify the signature. There's specific unfolding protocol that these poll workers have to follow. So it takes a lot longer than just in person feeding a ballot to a machine.
So we're going to walk you through what'll be different from last time. So let's start with the good news. For this election, 9 states are automatically sending ballots by mail to registered voters, which is pretty unique. And Wren and I have a bit of a confession. Because good journalists know when to admit that they didn't know something, and we didn't really know about all mail states.
We truly didn't know any states were doing all mail elections, but apparently Oregon, Washington State, Colorado, and Utah have been having all mail elections for a long time. And now California, Nevada, Hawaii, Vermont, and DC are joining the club.
And I'm literally from California. I'm such an embarrassment. But I called my parents and they confirmed that this is in fact true. But most of these all-mail states do actually still let you vote in person at the polls. You just actually have to sign an affidavit pledging that you're not going to send in a mail-in vote as well. But yeah, I asked my parents, they got their ballots in the mail, they sent them back, so firsthand reporting.
Well, studies have found all mail elections lead to higher voter turnout, so it's a great thing for these states, and we've really come so far as a society with mail voting. Like, mail-in ballots were originally called absentee because you had to provide an excuse for why you'd be absent during the in-person election, but now states are increasingly preferring the term vote by mail because it's just about your personal preference now.
So along with trying to get more people to vote, speeding up the ballot counting process has clearly been a priority in this election, especially in swing states that hold up basically announcing the winner. So Michigan, for example, is now allowing absentee ballot counting starting 8 days before Election Day, which is huge because they weren't previously allowed to start counting until election eve. And in 2020, they had 3 million absentee ballots to count. So this is bound to make like a huge difference.
Definitely. With this change, a Michigan official said that he expects 90% of absentee ballots to be counted before Election Day. And he doesn't envision a world where we don't know who won Michigan by midnight. So, woo!
Woo! Nevada also changed their laws to allow clerks to start counting early vote ballots when polls open rather than when polls close.
And they'll also have weeks leading up to Election Day to count mail ballots, so that will really speed things along.
But unfortunately, if you were locked in an anxious spiral in 2020 waiting for election results to come in, this year is projected to be pretty similar.
Yeah, some of the biggest states that we waited on last time have not changed their counting rules. Like Pennsylvania, remember last time when Pennsylvania was called like 4 days after the election day, the entire race was called because Pennsylvania has the most electoral college votes of any swing state.
And again, this election year, county officials are sounding the alarm, saying that it'll take days to count the votes because they can't even start processing these mail-in votes until the day of the election.
Right. So like I mentioned, mail-in ballots take longer to process. So most states allow processing to be done before election day. So then when election day comes, all you have to do is feed the ballot to the machine. Some states even allow counting of absentee ballots to take place before election day. That really speeds things along. But Pennsylvania doesn't allow either processing or counting until election day. So they don't even open a single envelope until the polls open.
You'd think they'd have changed their minds about how to really do this, but Pennsylvania isn't the only state that does this. Wisconsin also doesn't process their absentee ballots until election day.
Yes, a bipartisan measure to move up the absentee ballot counting process in my home state failed, so their results will be as slow as last time. But luckily, we are a smaller state than Pennsylvania, so it still shouldn't take more than a day to get Wisconsin results.
So that isn't too long, which is good because waiting around just like glued to our screens is excruciating.
I know, it's so funny. 2020 was so stressful, and those 4 days felt like a lifetime, but our parents had to wait over a month to find out who the president was in 2000.
I literally can't imagine. I feel like we'd all truly go insane.
Even though we were alive for it, like our generation can't remember how painful that must have been.
Even though elections are so different every 4 years, there are some things that stay the same, like the Associated Press is always the authority that counts the vote. So every election year, they actually send 4,000 reporters to every single county election office in the country. So every time a poll closes, that they're the first to report on it.
Oh, that's crazy. I hadn't heard it's that many reporters. I had seen that the AP has a 99.9% accuracy rate for predicting election winners for their over 170 years of doing that.
Wow, that's really cool, actually.
It's crazy.
Well, before we wrap up, we do have one more state to get through, which is a very talked about state, Arizona. So they actually changed their voting laws this year that'll cause a bit of a delay. So for the hundreds of thousands of ballots that'll be dropped off on election day, they all have to be hand counted.
Which will take extra time and mental focus, which could be hard if you're a poll worker that already worked a 12 to 15-hour shift.
Proponents of hand counting are saying that it'll help with accuracy and prevent fraud. We can assume that this is in response to the allegations of voter fraud in 2020, especially in Arizona.
Well, that's why last month the majority Trump-supporting Georgia State Election Board tried to pass a law to make every ballot be counted by hand. But a federal judge struck it down, saying that change came too close to the election. Elections really remind us that we are a nation sewn together of so many different states with distinct different laws and customs, and there's no other country that has this model of a union.
Yeah, it's interesting because each state has such a strong identity and culture. So no matter where you live, that is America to you, no matter what like border or mountain or Midwest state or coast. You get so wrapped up in the world of that state. But then when the election rolls around every 4 years, you're kind of forced to tap into the other states around you and learn that it is a whole other society of laws and culture. And so even though the election is seen as a time of division, it kind of forces you to get out of your state bubble a little bit and relearn what it means to be a part of a bigger country.
It's so universal. Like, no matter who you voted for, whether you're watching John King or Steve Kornacki or Bill Hemmer on the interactive board, we're all just waiting for the results to come in. And it's funny how every 4 years we all become like these mini experts on these counties we know nothing about. Like, I remember watching the 2020 election results come in with my parents, and they were getting really stressed. I'd be like, oh no, don't worry, like Maricopa County's not in yet. Or like, no, like Cobb County's breakdown is like this. Like, I don't know anything about these places. Why am I like talking like this? And I'm sure that will happen next week as well.
It really is such a special and stressful time no matter what side of the political aisle you're on. So before all the craziness of next week starts, just remember that we as a nation are really strong and will forge on no matter what. So remember to vote, and thanks for tuning in.
Bye.